Hi everyone, it's Kute here. I wanted to make a short video today really about how do you stay sane in a sometimes seemingly insane world where there can be so much pain and tragedy, where there's bombings and mass shootings and killings and sometimes so much terror that is plaguing parts of the world, and conflict and war and injustice and pain and suffering. How do we stay sane? You know, in a world where the economic or the political climate can be going haywire, how do you stay sane in a world such as this and not close your heart and not feel depressed, dejected, disillusioned, lose hope? How do we stay sane in sometimes a world that can seem insane without contracting in on ourselves or giving up or feeling heartbroken? How do we stay sane in a sometimes insane, seemingly insane world? There's a couple of things I'll say. And number one, if you're looking for perfection and peace outside, out in the 3D, if you're looking for some idea of a perfect life, perfect existence out here, there is no such thing as perfection in the 3D. And to stay sane, you know, because ultimately all the experiences in the 3D in the world are constantly changing, constantly transitory. Nothing is permanent. It goes up and it goes down. It creates, and there is creation and there is destruction. There's constant change and turmoil. It's part of the nature of life. It's part of the nature of three-dimensional existence. Change, constant change. So if your sense of sanity, if your sense of self, if your sense of peace is based on what's out here, the things out here, you know, the weather, the economy, who's president, you know, who's running the show. If your sense of peace is based on the external things out here, you will go completely crazy as the weather. You will be like a kite that is being blown from one side to the next side. That I believe to stay sane in a sometimes insane world when the storms blow, we must find our own truth. We must find our own center. We must ultimately unplug ourselves, take our power back, and we must reclaim our focus, because there is so much of an investment by the media to hijack your attention. We're in a fight right now for our attention. Social media, television, radio is hijacking our attention, and if we're not aware, we're being sold so much fear. We're being sold and programmed by the news and we're being showed so much of the negativity that's going on the planet. And in fact, I believe that, you know, it's often said that people say, well, there's so much pain and suffering on the planet. But the reality, too, is there are so many amazing things that are happening on the planet that we're not even shown these amazing things. It's even said, you know, Peter Diamandis talks about, the author of Abundance, talks about how we're actually living in some of the most peaceful times in human history right now. But because of the acceleration in technology, we are able to see what we're often shown and what we're able to see in a way that we would never hear before. Let's say 100 years ago, 500 years ago, we're able to see so much of the tragedy in an instant. We know when things get blown up. We know when things go wrong in an instant, and then it's broadcast all over the news. So if we're not careful, it's easy to feel depressed and dejected and to forget the miraculousness of life. So I think to stay sane, rather than focusing on everything that's going wrong with the world, rather than focusing on all the negativity in the world that we're constantly being shown, because when we're shown this negativity by the media, then it puts us into a coma. It puts us into a coma of disempowerment. And from that place of disempowerment and disillusionment, it's much easier for us to be manipulated. It's much easier for us to be controlled. It's much easier for us, in a state of fear, to be sold a bunch of products, goods, ideas. It's a lot easier for us to be controlled. So I feel like we have to be willing to unplug ourselves from the TikTok mass consciousness that is being perpetuated in our culture, so that we can really stay rooted and centered in who we are. And what we must remember is that what we are at the depth of our being is divine. We are divine beings having this human experience, and we cannot allow our attention to get hijacked by the human experience, the illusion of the human experience, which is transitory, which comes and goes. We must remember the eternal, transcendental, or innate, intelligent power that is at the depth of our being, that is what we are beyond birth, beyond death. That what you are in your core is whole, perfect, and complete. And what we must do is reclaim, take back our attention. So take a look at, where is your attention being hijacked by the media, by your parents, by society, by the news? Because we're constantly being hypnotized, and programmed. Energy flows to the point of your attention. So notice, where is your attention? Where is your attention? What are you focused on? Because where your attention is, that becomes your reality, that becomes your experience. So in order to stay sane, you have to reclaim your focus. What are you focusing on? If you're focusing on everything that's wrong with the world, if you're focusing on everything that's wrong inside of yourself, if you're focusing on everything that is terrible, then you're going to have a certain experience of life. You're going to have a certain experience of yourself. So I invite you to shift your focus, because if the truth is, there is so much miraculousness, there is so much amazingness about who you are, there is so much beauty and love. I mean, we don't hear the good news. We don't hear so much good news of all the babies that are born healthily each day, all of the planes that land successfully each day, all of the people that get home and go and make love to their loved ones each day. We don't hear all of the success stories, but what we hear are the disaster stories. And if we're not careful, that can put us into a sense of helplessness. So it's important that we remember the focus of gratitude. We remember the focus of how amazing life is. And you know, in order to shift something, you can't shift something at the same level of consciousness. You can't shift something or make a change or affect change if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling dejected, if you're feeling disillusioned, if you're feeling disempowered. But really, how you really get to affect change is by you raising your vibration. So if you see something that in the world that isn't resonating, that you're not liking, that isn't jiving, rather than judge that, rather than stay stuck in a level of let's say, helplessness, what you can do is focus on what actions can you take, what actions can you do in your life, in that moment, in that situation, to affect change. Because one thing that drives us crazy is when we see things out there in the world, injustices, pain, suffering, things that we don't like, and then we do nothing about it, and then we complain and we moan and we groan and we stay in a sense of disempowerment about it, and we actually don't do anything about it ourselves. So we have to ask ourselves, when we see things we don't like, what can I do? What's my part to play? What actions can I take? How am I actually making a difference in the situation? What am I contributing to creating a different reality that I'm seeing, that I'm seeing on television, that I'm seeing in my community, that I'm seeing in my family? Because if you don't, you'll stay insane. It will drive you crazy. But part of that, part of that is because we may not be doing anything to actually affect change. And the last thing I'll say is, sometimes it's often easy to look at the state of the world when we see things like terrorist attacks and mass killings, and it's easy to stay in anger. It's easy to hate those that are causing such suffering and committing such crimes, and to stay in hate. And I'm not saying certain things in terms of justice doesn't need to be served, and certain karmic debts need to be paid. But if we simply stay angry and hateful and vengeful, and it's simply in reactivity, we can't affect change. We can't create change at the same level of consciousness as the very thing we're trying to change. We must elevate ourselves to a higher level. And ultimately, I believe every single event, every single world event, every single situation is simply an invitation for your soul, for my soul, to love. It's all an invitation to love. What we realize is what we have to do is give up control, give up thinking that we know what's right for another person's experience, because every single one of us, every single soul has a unique journey, a unique destiny that we can't see. And we might think we know what's best for someone else, but we really don't know what each soul is seeking to learn in this experience called life. So I believe we have to go into a situation, into an experience with such humility, trusting that each soul that we come across, those that we know, those that we see on TV, they all have a journey and a part to play in this grand adventure. They all have their own soul lessons that they are seeking to learn. We may not always see those lessons, and they may not always make sense, and we may not be able to control the experiences of life. And one thing, if we want to stay sane in a sometimes seemingly insane world, is we have to give up this sense of control and trust that there is an intelligence, there is a life force, there is a consciousness that is functioning all of existence, and it is unfolding in ways that it needs to unfold, even though we can't see the totality, because sometimes our minds can only see a very small part of the puzzle. Our minds can only see a very small part of the entire tapestry of the process of life. So we have to give up control, and what we realize that we have control over is, no matter what is going on in life, no matter what arises, is our ability to love. It doesn't serve the world, it doesn't serve the evolution of peace on the planet. When we see terrorist attack, or when we see something happening in the world, or when we see a great tragedy, and we stay stuck in disempowerment, we stay stuck in victimhood, or we stay stuck in hate and anger and vengeance. What serves the world is that we drop into our hearts and recognize the pain and the suffering of all human beings. What will serve the world is that we move out of victimization and judgment and hate, and recognize that we're all doing the best we can from our own level of evolution right now, whether it's right or wrong. We're all doing the best we can in this moment. And what will help is, rather than perpetuate hate and anger from ourselves or reactivity, is that we learn to bring loving. This is what we have control over, that you and I, that we learn to bring loving to each moment. We learn that the person who is creating suffering and pain, that perhaps even though we don't know them, when we see what they're doing on television, they need the most loving. The person dropping the bombs, the person murdering, the person killing, the person creating the suffering, your parents, you know, your in-laws, your boss, whoever it is, whether it's on TV or in your life, that person, that situation, they are the ones that need the most love. To me, I believe that we can't control life, but we can control our response and our reaction. And the most powerful response, I believe, in order to stay sane, is your commitment to loving no matter what. Loving what is, loving what shows up. Then I believe you are free, because the level of your freedom is determined by the level at which you love. This is what you are here to do. This is the invitation of life. I invite you to keep loving. The quality of your life is determined by the quality at which you love, so love fully. If you enjoyed this video blog, folks, please share it with your friends. Pass it around. Make sure you sign up for my email list, and I'll be sending you some surprises and weekly inspiration. See you soon.